I'm Chris Houston. I'm a management consultant, sole practitioner. I've been working on my own for about 30 years, and I run a little company called the Change Alliance. Ogilvydo has been one of my clients for about 20 years, and most recently I've just finished writing a red paper, or a little ebook in their series, red paper series, called For Goodness Sake, Satisfy the Hunger for Meaningful Business. For Goodness Sake is a lens, a particular way of looking at, I think, a lot of seemingly unconnected phenomena that are happening in business marketplaces. So struggle for growth, issues around employee engagement, consumers getting upset, demanding sustainable products and services in the market. So a whole pattern of things that I began to look at and say, I think are part of a bigger movement. What is that movement? So For Goodness Sake is, first of all, a lens on a collection of activities or events that I think are happening in our market. But secondly, and in response to some of the readers as I was writing, people said, yes, but Chris, how do we change a business? And so For Goodness Sake has an element of prescription, a suggestion about when I work inside a business, how might I help it respond to the changes that I see happening in its marketplaces. And so it's a combination of a point of view, a lens, a way of interpreting a pattern of events in our culture, and secondly, some ideas around how collectively we might change businesses, but more particularly how personally I might get involved and begin to make that kind of contribution myself. One of the readers who's read most of the manuscript recently came back to me and said, Chris, this is a very micro view of change. And it's true that I've written extensively around the personal response to change. But that's because I think that very often we have dehumanized the businesses into some kind of abstract, anonymous collections of resources and talents, most easily described in economic terms. And yet, businesses are human enterprises filled with individuals making individual choices. And so we have to understand them as places where people live, not simply as economic entities. And so I've intentionally tied together, in For Goodness Sake, the relationship between organization or business change and deep personal responses to that happen, in fact, are the only mechanism by which real organizational change happens. A person can use For Goodness Sake, I think, in two ways, and they're illustrated perhaps by two different stories. One of the people who've read the manuscript and participated in its creation and said, this challenges me to think differently about how I can contribute. I don't need to be the CEO to make a difference in this company. I can do it from the role and with the tools that I've got. So one is I'm finding people are discovering roles for themselves and ways that they can make a contribution that they didn't think was possible and that they're challenged to do. The second is an illustration from a CEO who asked me just recently for a copy because he needed it to stimulate a conversation around the kinds of businesses that we should be acquiring and becoming engaged in. So at a personal level, there's a message there that seems to be encouraging for people. At a system or at a whole business level, there are ideas in For Goodness Sake that are stimulating different ways of configuring businesses in order to make a significant contribution and in order to grow those businesses and make them successful.